Wait a minute, is Survival Hunter actually the worst melee DPS in the game? Well, in raids, these specs here, they're not melee, are they? Damn it! How about M+? Oh, arm sucks more! Saved!
Got him!
I mean, if that's a consolation, I guess. But if you do look at the popularity, it is low, so what's going on? Is it that bad? Short answer is no, but you may want some reasons, huh? Well, before I dispel the community perception, you have to understand that whenever we are talking about data, whether it is a tier list we make or rankings you can find on websites, it will never be 100% conclusive. Aggregated data tends to hide some of the variables it used to be generated from, and in our case, that data we have from logs will come from people using logs. And not everybody uses logs, although we can probably safely assume that the players who are pushing hard content will more likely use logs than not, and if not, there's a chance someone in their group will definitely use logs, making it an overall a high chance their performance is monitored somehow. Either way, we have to face the facts. Survival is unfortunately on the lower end when it comes to damage output. We can take a look at a pure single target, no bullshit fight like Sick Run, where the survivals are ranging from 1.13 million DPS to 1.24 million DPS. While similarly, the top 10 DPS on the same boss range from 1.35 million to 1.41 million DPS, all without any external buffs like PIs, but likely augmented by some evokers. And Sick Run is a very straightforward boss, with little movement, save from dodging and unfortunate line needed to be placed, all which can be mitigated by aspect of the eagle more than other specs have, and the inherent range that survival has on almost all of its abilities. We can also take a closer look at a pure of an AoE fight as you can, which is Ovinax. At the moment, as of recording this, there are only 4 survivals in the world finishing this fight on Mythic. And the only reason I kept the data from Mythic and not from Heroic, where there would be more logs and more numbers to sift through, is because these 4 gamers cranked way harder than the rank 1 survival on Heroic. So if we're looking at the best case scenario, maybe this is it. Well, of course, in a month's time, there will be more likely better performance from survival here, where people have more gear and chances to practice the fight better, but that's slightly irrelevant since in a month's time, all specs will probably clear the content anyway, so the talk of a particular spec being too bad, unplayable, or undesirable becomes moot. If anything, the fact that survival can clear this deep into Mythic this close after the race ended proves the spec is not as bad as people want it to be. And I'm talking about the people that would not take survival into their groups for some reason. And I would also be curious to know how many of those people can even pull off top 4 Ovinax survival numbers. Which you might do well to not open these logs themselves. No, don't do it! Ah, shit. Well, cat's out of the bag. Even with the best survivals in the world, you can still see them as middle of the pack. But middle of the best kind of pack in the world, the likely Hall of Fame type pack. So statistically, way better than you and me combined. Either way, this extends to Mythic Plus as well. I took some data from a +11 Arakara key with groups having an augmentation evoker in, since finding one without an aug evoker is almost impossible. The best survival key I could find with an aug evoker has him clear it with a 1.36 million DPS overall, still quite a fair bit behind the Frost Death Knight. If we take a look at other +11 Arakaras, we can see that these gamers are cranking easy 1.8 million DPS when there's an augmentation present. And hey look, there's a dorky keeping the chicken dream alive. Literally anything can happen in the game now, and if that's not hope for survival, then I don't know what is. Survival has and will forever be one of my all-time favorite specs, and the rework it got coming into the war within made it even better. I decided to actually pick it up and see what the fuss is all about. In the week I took up the mantle, I managed to score some nice keys on stream with our viewers. Speaking of which, you can check us live on twitch.tv/Marcelian online, where we test these specs and try very hard not to suck at them. Just saying. So link below. I managed to get up to 587 eye level with 2 set bonus, because when I said it was a week, it was actually a few short days of getting some epics for our hunter videos here on YouTube. Be that as it may, a 587 2 set eye level survival, I managed to finish a very scuffed and untimed +4 with over 600k overall DPS. That's not a lot if you compare it to a fully tiered up main of 610 eye level or more, but as someone with greens and only 2 set bonus, that is not too shabby. Also, considering the key was failed, the overall is way tinier than what it could have been. But perhaps that's the oxymoron. The key was failed because the damage was too low. But we all know actually it was the fault of the healer. This isn't a flex of my personal skill, lol, far from it. My rustiness on survival is real and rotation was wonky, but even with that I managed to score over 1.2 million DPS on packs with my shit gear, and all to point out that at the middle of the bell curve where the average player stands, which is most of us, the performance is way more than enough to clear keys and braids. Add actual skill of someone dedicated to this spec, non-green gear pieces, and maybe even a full tier set bonus, and you have a legit pumper. You won't out DPS a mage or frost DK if they are also actually as good and prepared as you, but you can out DPS your average FOMO player that swaps meta specs like Tic Tacs. And if you really want the most objective proof you can find, the Sims for fully geared DPS on simple target fights will put survival actually right in the middle, pretty far from the bottom if you ask me. Numbers aside, survival has legit design issues, even if the current rework is some of the best survival gameplay I personally enjoyed ever since Legion pre-patch. First of all, one of the 2 biggest sins is that Pack Leader is an incredibly boring and fantasy-lacking hero talent option. Second, it's at the same time dead. Do they cancel each other out? I'm not sure if that's how it works. But in the end, its lack of diversity is in detriment to its selling points. Some of the issues it has is from big damage sources like Howl of the Pack. This is an incredibly big damage buff that you have to maintain, yet the encounter design makes it so dropping it is quite the occurrence, especially for more casual players looking to not play Sentinel. This is because you want your pet's crits to fuel your crit damage, which can stack up to 15% crit damage. That is a pretty big increase if you stack crit, which you already should. This talent is also propped up by wild strikes, making your pet's third attack always crit. Now, if the target moves, becomes invulnerable, your pet bugs, or in between dungeon packs your tank waits too long to engage in the next one, the buff drops and you have to work towards getting it up again by getting your pet to crit some more. The reason I mentioned these 2 Pack Leader talents in particular is because it will be important later. Sentinel is now without his design issues, one of which would be very familiar to people since survival is not the only one suffering from it. I am talking, of course, about the Owl AoE thingy, the actual name of this talent, which is a ground effect that blasts enemies inside its area. The main issue is tanks moving stuff outside of it, which also happens for stuff like Rain of Fire, Blizzards, Deaths and Decay, and so on. The list is not short. Another issue it has, which is also an issue that some of the previous abilities share, is that the tank cannot see the ground effect, even if he or she would love to keep stuff in it. Now I understand we reduce the amount of effects that people see so it doesn't crowd their game, but that is another issue altogether, a game optimization issue or a game over design issue. There are so many things happening in combat that your computer will burn to a crisp if it tries to show you all of them, but also there are so many, man. Way too many little procs, little explosions from 7 different abilities affecting 7 different animations on 7 different enemies from 7 different sources, and your New Year's fireworks party ends up looking like a sad bachelor's birthday cake candle, the solitary kind. the rotation is not doing the spec any favors in bringing in new and returning players. And you might say, that's not true, I love it, and I get it. I love it too. It's probably the best we've ever had as survivals. But do you think your average BM hunter agrees? If, you know, they could read this word when trying to change specs.
Service? Survivable? No, that's stupid. Serpent sting? That's it. I know that one.
It's not an amazingly difficult rotation, but with the focus management, tip of the spears management, kill command charges, bomb charges, butchery charges, and all of the mini cooldowns like explosive shot, fury of the eagle, coordinate assault, spearhead, flanking strike, and just as many utility buttons can be a tad overwhelming for sure.
So I spent my focus on Raptor Strike, and I generated with kill command. Gotta press that since I have 2 charges already. Wildfire bombs next, since I am at 2 charges and the damage is big from them. Butchery is at 2 charges too. Kill command is back. Oh, flanking strike is off cooldown. Let's press that, and explosive shot. But wait, kill command is back. Gotta press it. And bombs are back. Butchery. I'm capped on kill command again. And now focus. Raptor strike again. Oh shit, I forgot about coordinate assault, and kill command is back. Bombs. Focus. Butchery. Bombs. Kill command is back. Focus. Flanking. Bombs. Kill command is back. Butchery. Bombs. And kill command is back. And did I forget the oven on?
But all of this is about to change in the 11.0.5 patch. Well, most of this anyway. A lot of changes will happen in the spec and hero talent trees to accomplish a few things. One, and the biggest, is to reduce the amount of globals you have available so as to not get overwhelmed, which in turn makes the rotation counterintuitive and the player needing guides to figure out the spec on live. Second, some much needed pack leader buffs that hopefully make it into other similar mechanics that specs have, which are heavily tied to uptime on a target, which in turn is very sensitive to error, encounter design, and incredibly high spec optimization playstyles. Starting from the top, Butchery will now have no more charges, but a larger cooldown, which will be hasted. Together with this, Frenzy Strikes will now make it so the cooldown reduction Butchery gives is of 3 seconds per target up to a total of 5 targets for a total of 15 seconds reduction on Wildfire Bomb. As a comparison, the live version of this would be a 5 seconds cooldown reduction max per Butchery times 2 charges for a total of 10 seconds. So you get more cooldown reduction but way fewer Butchery casts. This will seemingly reduce the amount of bombs you throw out as well. I think. With my gear at the moment, I feel I actually have a harder time capping on Wildfire Bombs as opposed to live. It could be placebo, or it could be a result of many more of my globals being different abilities instead of butcheries, so it doesn't feel I Wildfire Bomb 24/7. To make this even more impactful, Merciless Blows will be redesigned to instead make Butchery leave the fattest of the dots out on the target's hit. The amount of damage you get with only one Butchery seems to amount to over 5 total Butchery casts from the live version of Survival. So all of that damage is instead packed into one global instead of 5 or 6 or so the Big Hunter Theory crafters calculated. Exposed Flank will be changed as well. It will still make Kill Command hit multiple targets, but now it will generate a tip of the spear stack for each one hit. This will increase the amount of tip stacks you get by quite a bit, which in turn boosts your damage, but also makes it easier to buff more of the desired abilities with the tip of the spear effect, at least in AoE. The Capstone Bombardier is also getting a major buff as well as a quality of life change, as opposed to giving you 2 free explosive shots, which granted is cool, but also yet 3 more globals all into explosive shot, making the rotation feel very heavy. it will now reset the cooldown of your explosive shot and make it also hit 2 additional targets, with the mechanic effectively giving you still 3 explosive shots, but in 1 cast instead of 3, saving you 2 extra globals to spend on some other ability, while also likely making Tip of the Spear buff all 3 shots with 1 stack instead of needing a total of 3 stacks for the same effect. And last but not least, everybody's favorite ability, Fury of the Eagle, gets buffed and altered as well. Its base damage has been buffed, but also the channel time has been shortened to 3 seconds instead of 4. So functionally, you squeeze more damage in even less time than before. And that's not all. After almost 3 fucking years, the capstone Ruthless Marauder is now finally 1 point investment. And it will now buff Fury of the Eagle by 10%, give it a 20% chance to generate a Tip of the Spear stack, and buffing you with 8% haste when it finishes channeling. All for only 1 point. First of all, Fury of the Eagle is played on live in builds that you see for small mythic keys. So this will not only make those builds way stronger, but also give you an extra talent point to put into something you wouldn't have had otherwise, like the new Merciless Blows, for example. And last but not least, for real this time, the pack leader changes. The bad news is, it is still a passive, boring tree. The good news is that the talents I mentioned before, which were problematic, have been buffed. Hall of the Pack will additionally buff Wildfire Bomb damage by 20%, and Wild Attacks will additionally buff Raptor Strike damage by 20%. This is actually a goofy, yet oddly effective fix. It doesn't address the real issue with getting value out of these talents, but offer flat passive damage boosts to them. This means that they recognize there is a problem here and maybe just didn't have time to fix them. Unless this is supposed to be the fix, which I refuse to believe, since Dark Ranger got a banger of a rework, making it very plausible that Pack Leader can get one as well. All in all, the changes coming to survival are way more impactful than people may believe, and you might not realize it until you actually get to play it, and suddenly it all feels much better. And if you still don't believe there is big hopes for hunters, check our Beast Mastery video out, since BM also got an even longer list of changes as well as a full Dark Ranger talent rework.